People might think that's foolish, an old man talking to a patch of earth, but I know he hears me, because he always did. He was just a pet. That's what people say. But he was way more loyal than three closest humans, who were the reason I broke 15 years ago. I will tell you how they betrayed me, but I realized it too late. He was there when no one else was. He loved me when I was unlovable. He stayed when everyone else found reasons to leave, and he was more human than anyone I have ever known. Copper came into my life in 2013. My wife Eleanor passed the year before. 45 years of marriage, and then one morning she was simply gone. The house became a museum. Every room is full of her absence. My doctor suggested I get a dog. I thought it was the most ridiculous advice I had ever heard. But a friend, one of the few decent ones, took me to a shelter on a Saturday morning, and there was this clumsy, oversized puppy with enormous paws he hadn't grown into yet, and a look on his face like he had been waiting specifically for me. I named him Copper because of the reddish tint in his fur. He was 8 weeks old. I was 69, and for 13 years that dog was my reason to get up in the morning, literally. When Eleanor died, I stopped seeing the point of mornings. Copper gave it back to me. He needed breakfast. He needed a walk. He needed me. And I needed to be needed more than I could ever admit to another human being. I worked hard my whole life, built a small construction business from nothing. By the time I was 50, I had more money than I ever dreamed of as a boy. And that money brought people, so many people. My phone rang constantly. Birthdays were never forgotten. The holidays were crowded and loud. Everyone wanted to be near Raymond. I thought I was loved. I was not loved. I was useful. Let me tell you about my brother Dennis. Dennis was 3 years younger than me. We grew up sharing a bedroom, a bicycle, and a dream of making something of ourselves. When I started making money, Dennis came to me first. He needed $50,000 to save his restaurant. I gave it without blinking. Didn't ask for paperwork, didn't ask for a timeline. He was my brother. That's what you do. The restaurant closed anyway 6 months later. Then 2 years later, he needed $40,000 for a new business idea. I gave that too. Then his son needed money for college. Then his daughter needed help with a divorce lawyer. Then Dennis himself needed a new truck. For 11 years, I was Dennis's personal bank. And then, in 2019, I had a heart attack. I was alone in my house when it happened. I managed to call 911 myself, spent 4 days in the hospital. Dennis visited once, for 45 minutes. On the last day, he brought a gas station card and said he had been busy. Busy. After $110,000 of my money, he was busy. Copper was sitting at the hospital entrance when they brought me home. My neighbor had been watching him. The moment he saw me step out of that car, he didn't bark, he didn't jump. He just walked slowly to me, pressed his big golden head against my leg, and stayed there, like he knew, like he understood everything. And I thought to myself, this dog came further for me today than my own brother. Then there was my business partner, Frank. Frank and I built that company together for 19 years. We shook hands on deals before we signed papers. We trusted each other completely, or so I believed. When I decided to retire at 68, we agreed on a buyout number, fair and square. We shook hands again. 3 months later, Frank's lawyers sent me a contract with a number 40% lower than what we agreed. When I called Frank directly, he told me, and I remember this word for word, he said, "Raymond, I think you misremembered our conversation." 19 years. And he looked me in the eye and told me I misremembered. I fought it. I got a lawyer. It cost me 2 years and more stress than my heart needed. I eventually settled for something in the middle. But what I lost wasn't just money. It was 19 years of believing in someone. 19 years of thinking Frank was my friend. That kind of loss doesn't heal the way a broken bone heals. It just stays there, a quiet ache. The night my lawyer called to tell me the settlement was done, I sat at my kitchen table completely alone. No one called to check on me. Not Dennis. Not any of the cousins who had eaten at my table for years. Not the neighbors I had helped move furniture for, watched their dogs, lent my truck to. No one. But Copper put his chin on my knee. He sat there for 2 hours while I stared at nothing. Just his warm weight on my leg. Just his quiet breathing. Just him. That dog never once asked me for anything I couldn't give. He never needed me to be rich or strong or successful. He just needed me to be there. And I needed the same from everyone else in my life. But only he ever gave it. I want to tell you about my son, Thomas. Thomas is 48 now. Good-looking man, smart, successful in his own right. But Thomas and we lost each other somewhere in the middle of his 20s. I was working too much. He felt ignored. I felt unappreciated. We said things that carved scars into each other. For almost 12 years we barely spoke. Then when word got around that I had done well financially, Thomas started calling again. At first I was so desperate for my son that I didn't question it. We had dinners. We talked. I helped him with his mortgage. I flew to see his kids, my grandchildren, who barely knew my face. It felt like healing. But the calls slowed down again the moment I mentioned I was changing my will and giving a large portion to charity. Funny how that works. I don't say this with hatred toward Thomas. I say it with a sadness that I carry every day, because I would have given anything for a real relationship with my son. Instead, what I got was a transaction. Copper never transacted with me. Every single morning of his life he was just there, tail going, eyes bright, happy simply because I was in the room. Do you know how rare that is? To have someone happy simply because you exist. We had 13 years together, 13 winters and summers, 13 Christmases, where he would tear into his gift like a puppy every single time. Thousands of walks through the neighborhood, countless evenings on the back porch watching the sun go down together. When I was sick, he slept on the floor beside my bed. When I was sad, he rested his head in my lap. When I laughed, he wagged his whole body, not just his tail. He knew my moods before I did. He knew when I needed company and when I needed quiet. He asked for nothing but love and returned it tenfold. Last spring I noticed he was slowing down. The walks got shorter. The stairs became difficult. His eyes, always so bright, became tired. The vet told me his heart was failing, and I sat in that cold office and felt something break open in my chest because I knew what was coming, and I was not ready. I was not ready to lose the last one who truly loved me. He went on a Thursday morning in April. I held him on the floor of the living room, his head in my lap, the same position we had spent thousands of hours in. He looked up at me at the end, those amber eyes, tired but calm, like he was telling me it was all right, like he was saying thank you. I talked to him. I told him he was the best thing in my life. I told him he saved me more times than he knew. I told him I would see him again somewhere in whatever comes after this. And then he was gone. And the silence that followed was the loudest thing I have ever heard. Last month, I buried my best friend. He didn't have a gravestone, no funeral, no flowers, just a small patch of earth beneath the oak tree in my backyard, and an old man on his knees in the dirt, crying like a child. His name was Copper. He was a golden retriever, and he was the most loyal soul I have ever known in 82 years of living. I've had friends, I've had family. I've had colleagues, neighbors, business partners, but not one of them, not a single one, loved me the way that dog did. The oak tree in my backyard is beginning to bloom again. I sit beside it every morning with my coffee, and I talk to Copper. I tell him about my day. I tell him the neighborhood news. I tell him I miss him in a way that doesn't have words.